The Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com. Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. 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 The reason that I can say that is you have a couple of different factors occurring right now as we speak on the world stage. The dollar is being disrupted. Nations are no longer wanting to engage with the United States. But the third factor that affects each and every one of us is that there is a diaspora from the African continent that's willing and able to engage our brothers and sisters on the continent.
Every journey begins with a simple act of care. For Quest to Unite Africa, that journey started with something simple: a mother, a newborn, and a promise that no life would be forgotten. We did not begin with buildings, we began with people. We packed mother newborn kits with our own hands because real change starts where the need is greatest. Those kids traveled farther than we imagined, and they opened our eyes to a deeper truth. Aid saves lives, but infrastructure saves generations. So we grew. Together with donors, volunteers, and partners, we sent a medical container to Burkina Faso. Not just supplies, but hope. Not just boxes, but proof that when a community comes together, healing moves across borders. That moment changed us because we realized something powerful. We weren't just delivering help, we were building a future. Now the journey continues. The next chapter is bigger than a shipment, bigger than a campaign. We are raising funds to build a state-of-the-art hospital, a place where mothers can give birth safely, where families can find care close to home, and where communities can grow stronger for generations to come. This hospital is not just a structure, it's a promise. A promise that healthcare will no longer be temporary. A promise that dignity will have a permanent home. And just like every step before, we cannot do this alone. Every gift, every brick, every name placed on the founder path becomes part of a story that began with compassion and is growing into legacy. It helps us move from emergency aid to lasting healing, from containers to care that never leaves, from vision to reality. Join us, stand with us, help us build a hospital that will serve generations, moving healthcare into action. Visit q2ua.org today.
Okay, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world, whether you're the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you're a Gentile grafted into the house under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. I welcome you this morning. Give me a 1 if you can hear me. I'm going through some technical difficulties. I'm struggling to get through this, but I thank the Most High each and every day that I'm able to get on here and fellowship with our people, no matter the technology and everything else that is messing things up. It is what it is. Speaking of technology, I want to kind of go into this one real quick. Oh, got to jump into these articles quick, fast, and in a hurry. Oh, I'm still cracking up over jit, 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 jit. He's going in the ambulance tonight. He done busted his knee trying to get up at me. Man, I showed my son that yesterday. He said, "Dad, you post some ignorant behind stuff." I said, "No, it's not ignorant. I mean, it is. I mean, let me. Excuse me. Let me have a more refined conversation." Uh, no, the actions that the Caucasian man had engaged in caused him to be put on blast in the most brutalist of fashions. While my man is laid up having a song and a rap video all together, classic. Oh my goodness. My man was rapping, choreography, videography, having the screen takes, you name it. It was classic. It was classic. And, and all the dude could do after he done busted his knee out was just sit there, post up, and just take it. You know what though? Sometimes you have to understand that your beat downs, emotional beat downs, are much better than anything with fists and things of that nature, because you have to realize that you can have a moment of pain. Okay, that you can have that moment of pain, but when you're enduring the challenge of vanity going wrong, then and having to sit there and be humbled during that time, that is some very interesting dynamics that, to be quite honest, they as in the adversaries, they're seeing that right now. The way that they are looking and realizing that their system, it's slow motion. Don't get it twisted. This has been years, decades in the making. But in terms of the years and the decades, and don't get it twisted. This is very tragic, and I'm not here to to just laugh at the issues, which there are, because frankly, it's pretty sad. The old adage or the old sayings of keep your hands to yourself. Don't engage in the wickedness and evil. But for some odd reason, they have to engage. And what they engage in and what they do, it's funny because you are what you create is the image of you, the mirror of you. What you create. But I want to come here real quick to to show this one as I was giving my little monologue to get to this transition here. Open AI agent acted on its own to hack another firm, company says. This is from the Washington Post as of yesterday, July 21st. Today is July 22nd, 2026. Just giving you those dates for posterity. An OpenAI agent acted on its own to hack another tech firm. Company says the incident follows recent concerns in Silicon Valley and at the White House that AI models are becoming dangerously good at identifying security flaws in software. Artificial intelligence software. Okay, so this article is by Garrick DeVink. Artificial intelligence software and testing by ChatGPT maker OpenAI breached security controls, accessed the internet, and hacked another tech firm to obtain answers to questions probing its security skills, OpenAI said on Tuesday. The security breach follows a scramble over recent months in the tech industry and governments around the world to respond to the arrival of AI models capable of identifying security flaws in software. The Trump administration temporarily imposed restrictions on OpenAI and its rival Anthropic, maker of the chatbot Claude, to prevent their tech being used by U.S. adversaries. We consider this incident to be an unprecedented. Oh, let me scroll on up. Sorry, these ads kill this website. Involving state of the art cyber art. We consider this incident to be an unprecedented cyber incident involving state of the art capabilities, OpenAI said in a blog post. OpenAI briefed the Trump administration on the situation before announcing it publicly. Well, yeah, of course. And you have to understand um they're trying to show and tell you what it is and how they are really programming the masses for this particular setup. And that setup is going to be based on AI's control of them in the future. I'm not making this up. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being just so nihilistic and all this other craziness. No, because again, we have to truly understand this, and I want us to really understand the basics of our captivity, and it's truly here in Second Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. As I was reading this last week, but we have to understand what it is that is the basis of our captivity and the basis of how to get out of our captivity. It's going to come one way or another, but the trajectory of how that's going, we're getting there. It's not going to be an overnight thing. This was a different and sophisticated. People which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Let me tell you about this captivity. There was always a choice. And that choice is even today that people are choosing to hold on to their captivity. As much as you can clearly see everything going down in the Middle East, everything happening all around the world, the standard and the status of America declining, our people hanging over the the choice, and we chose to break the covenant. That's what the Most High had showed us. No, no, no. You can get as mad or as emotional as you want to. Yes, that's what our ancestors did. They chose to enter into a covenant where the Most High brought his people, choose his day. You can have the good or you can have the bad. That's what the Most High was explaining and has always been explaining. It's always our choice. You could serve wicked or you could serve righteousness. But if I do this, yeah, I know, but I know it's bad. I know it's wicked, but is it wicked to be paid? And you know what we do? We try to justify wickedness. We do. See what they're preparing for, these bros, these tech giants. They're preparing for enslavement of the people left here in the United States. They're preparing for enslavement. Don't get it twisted. That's not going to happen. Yes, it is. They're conditioning you with that right now. This war It's not going to end the way that people think that it's going to end. Oh, it's just one of those things. It's don't worry. We'll get back to normal. That's what they're looking for. Can we get back to normal? Well, what's your definition of normal? Gee, I don't know. I really can't remember what my definition of normal is. I think, I believe, it feels like you understand they realize the psychology of human beings, of humans. I was just thinking about this before I went online. The seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And I was just thinking about that. They've had thousands of years to perfect their craft, and their craft has worked until perfection. Until perfection. Up until about 2019, 2020. Spiritually, most of our people were just dead. Well, I think it's good. I don't know. I don't really think about that. I don't know. Haven't really thought. I don't know. Now, understand that a lot of our people are quote unquote awakening, but a lot of our people are actually waking up into wickedness, trying to cover up a little bit of righteousness on it. Most High, Father and Mother. What? What? Why? Because it's still they know they're getting ready to go, and what are they still going to try to do? They're still going to try to seed elements of wickedness. Because why? Because that's what the enemy does. You show me that in this word, in this scripture. Because in your scripture, in your word, it doesn't show how we were getting up out of this Babylon system. You can name all the stuff. Oh, you can name Babylon, but where's your scriptures? How do you support that? Don't come over here with Most High, Father, and Mother. Where? What? They always try to equate that feminine spirit because why? Because Babylon is trying to make its nest. Babylon is trying to hitch a ride. Nah, this is it, Babylon. You're done. Because why? Because our people are doing something extraordinary. We're speaking truth and peace. Nah, we're gonna call out those dark sentences. We're gonna call out those dark policies. We're gonna call out all that junk and nonsense and wickedness. Because why? Because at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, you know what? Babylon system's rising, and then we can be the owners of this system. They're going to choose wickedness. Why? Because the wicked continue to do wickedly. The wicked are going to continue to do wicked. It's that simple. They're not understanding that this whole time that we have been here, the hand of the Most High has been on us. We were being punished, but we weren't going to be altogether destroyed. There is a remnant. Don't ask me how I survived. I don't know. I look at myself and I'm like, man, I've been in every single one of those particular elements. I survived going to a high school that was 99% white. I survived living in an area that was over 90% Caucasian. I don't know how I survived. That was literally the Most High leading and guiding me throughout the many traps that was probably laid for me. And the Most High sustained me. Because even as a young man, even at 13, 14 years old, I knew who I was through Christ at that time, Yahushua HaMashiach. But I also knew that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I had some scriptural understanding. My parents, my grandparents made sure that I knew and understand. I wasn't a genius at it. I didn't know everything. But I knew when times were tough, I knew at least, Father, in the name of Jesus. I knew some of the structural components. That's why I tell people, I'm like, look, we'll say Yahushua HaMashiach. I get it. But for those that are still on the babe's milk, you may not know your parents' name just yet. Mom, dad. When you get into school, they don't ask kindergartners, hey, what is your dad's name? They say it's my dad. The level of sophistication isn't there just yet. You still have to grow into that level of sophistication. Oh man, you know what? I never really thought about it. I'm gonna have to ask my dad, what's his actual name? When was your dad? When was your dad born? Man, do you even know your address? Oh man, I just know I live. I take the bus. You know, the bus drops me off, and I live somewhere on the street. Why? Because we do not and have not really paid attention, because those are things that have to still be learned even in our most adolescent behaviors. We're at the time now that we are growing back to our authority, to our place. Believe it or not, we were actually teenagers and we got hit upside the head and they done knocked us on out and then they done had us in a state of spiritual amnesia. If you can imagine this, and this is going to be a little graphic, so please, because it's not just me. Isaiah says it, Ezekiel, and so does Jeremiah. So do all the major and minor prophets regarding us. We were the definitions of some crackheads. And I don't want to be so vulgar or graphic, but I want you to understand this analogy because I've known that there's probably men and women that have had to deal with their spouses regarding substance abuse and things of that nature. We have been a people that have been on a spiritual substance abuse problem. And we have not realized that we have been given that spiritual crack, which caused us to be violently kicked out of our homes, to cause us to be violently tracked across the world, to endure the transatlantic and the trans-Saharan slave trade, to endure chattel slavery, and now to endure this captivity. Oh, they're no longer. They can't really get on this dosage. All right, well, just sit them on over in the corner. Let them rot there because they're no longer useful to us. We were just being managed. Our drug dealers were just managing us because why? Because we weren't bringing in the trillions of dollars a year free labor. We weren't just giving and devoting our all. Don't you want to come on over here? Don't you want to do this? Don't you want? Well, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to be our victual. You're supposed to say, yes, I'd love to go with you to on this canoe trip. I love to go with you on this boat. I love to go with you during this water activity. So then they can sacrifice you. You know, the greatest situation that they're going through is simply us not wanting to be in their spaces anymore, separating ourselves. That is amazing that 18 months later, after we've just declared and separated ourselves, for the most part, communities are feeling the pinch. Businesses in certain communities are boarding up. Um, Communities that had been over us, that had owned us, that had uh, even eaten us. They're breaking down. You know what? I think that we have been the problem. I think that we have that we it's our fault. I'm beginning to suspect. Did you already know that we've already had that power? That power has been there. But when we started to step away from the substance, when we started to realize the substance for what it was, we started to come to our senses, starting to come to ourselves in the lands of our captivity. Oh, that sounds like Jeremiah 50. We're coming to ourselves. And the more that we're coming to ourselves, the worse it is becoming for them. Wait, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Who says? We need to make them buy at our stores. We need to make them come back to our churches. Noahide laws. All of these different now doctrines. Look, we couldn't fool them with this doctrine. Now we have to go to the extremes. Have you noticed that? Whenever they're losing on something, they have to go to the extremes. Wait, tell me where this is biblically. Oh, well, what tradition does this follow? What does this actually say? They're thinking that they can go back to their root source of power. I can just go back to my principality, and my principality, she'll let me know. Your principality has no more power because your principality was powered on the Most High's people. And that's why they're mad. They're mad because the logical arguments that they would have is now breaking down. Wait a second, but what about this, this, and this? What about this, this, and that? Have you realized that they don't even proselytize that much? They used to be big on proselytizing. Well, somebody got the memo upstairs. Do not engage with black people because um, a lot of them are reading the word. A lot of them are actually seeing some of these these fallacies, and they are able to then see everything for what it is. And in doing so, the indoctrination that their people have, it gets challenged. Have you noticed that why there's now so many Caucasians, white folks on out there riding hard? Yeah, these are the people of the book. How did you come? I like to find out and ask these folks, how did you come to that realization? What happened? Because their indoctrination hits hard. Remember, their indoctrination had gone through centuries of refinement to be at the peak. Look, you just have to sprinkle on a little bit of Jesus, and you see how black folks will just go right back into the spiritual crack. They'll go back into spiritual zombie mode. They go back into their spiritual high. Exactly, the diamond lady. She said, once we point out we are the people of the book, their false teachings fall apart. It does. The narrative falls apart because that is the biggest threat. The biggest threat to them, it's not weapons, ammunition. It's simply us remembering who we are. It's simply us calling out who we are through what this word has stated. In the time of our captivity, in the time of our oppression, in the time where we would be scattered to the four corners of this earth, in the time that we would be serving our oppressors, in the time that we would be doing this, and you know what? They could not counter any of it. They tried to have a logic counter of, well, let's agree. Let's say for a second, let's agree for a second that you're the people. That quickly fell away because when they realized that, then they realized, well, if you're the people, then we're the enemy. And if we're the enemy, we're serving literally Hasatan. We're actually being the adversary. We are the wicked seed. We are this. And we can't turn away. We can't repent. That's not in our nature. Uh-oh. Have you realized they stopped that one too? That's why I've been telling people, I said, don't argue with them. Don't get involved with them. Because at the end of the day, they are destined to fail. They're just trying to figure on out how many people that they can take with them in their failure. And yes, this place is going to be a hell on earth administered by whatever their version of the Terminator T-1000s. That will be obviously imported from China. My son used to love this movie back in the day. I remember he was like, this was one of his like first, when you're about 4 or 5 years old, you start to see those movies, and you start to get heavily impacted. He's 20 now, so that kind of tells you something. But he was showing me. He said, "Dad, they have the real life heavy metal." And I think it's heavy metal. It was one of those. It was one of those like dystopian, futuristic movies to where this person was a. I know I had Hugh Jackman back in the day. It must have came back. It came out in like 2010 or 11, and Hugh Jackman used to fix up robots to fight, and his robot was a champion, and it got totally destroyed and demolished. It's a comeback story with robots going on out in the ring and everything else. And it was a more of a Hollywood fictitious movie back then. Real Steel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Ivan. Hallelujah. Real Steel. Yes. And you know, at the end of the movie, the the protagonist, he was able to restore his relationships because his robot had won, and and he was very happy. And now, as we had just covered that article regarding AI bots, AI agents getting on out and hacking, what do you think is going to happen? I tell this to people. I'm like, do you understand? They're literally putting this in front of your face. Why? Why are they putting this in front of your face? Because it's simple. It's things like this. We didn't think that we would be at this moment of in time. But as our captivity is ending, the moment in time is actually showing how things are moving. Let me get back to this. This is from the New York Times. This is as of today, about 7:38, less than an hour ago. Oil price jumps as war threats intensify. Oil price jumped on Wednesday as fighting between the United States and Iran continued around the Persian Gulf, and a threatened blockade in the Red Sea added to growing uncertainty about the flow of energy from the region. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday that U.S. forces would continue to attack Iran as long as it tried to exercise control over shipping traffic, and that control was agreed upon. That's what Trump had signed in the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, the Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU that they signed, and they went back. They broke the oath. So guess what? Now the world sees it. They're seeing it for what it is, and no matter how they try to say it and do everything else, we understand who they are. Look, we already know who they are, but now the world has to see who they are. A day earlier, President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Tuesday threatened to deepen the war effort, including by potentially targeting the Houthis. It doesn't matter. The Houthis, they don't care. Because now that the Houthis are in the fight, don't get it twisted. But that's at least something that they feel that Saudi Arabia and UAE can handle. But to be quite honest, they more than likely can't handle it. Because the oil, because what's going to end up happening, what Iran is going to do, Iran is going to target more of the oil supply. Hey, if we can't get our supply on out, nobody's going to get the supply on out. That's why the Houthis jumped on in. And the Houthis, you can't control the Houthis. The Houthis were so out of control. The Houthis were so out of control. The U.S. had to negotiate with them separately. Iran was like, we can't control that. They are intense. No. The U.S. literally had to more than likely give the Houthis money to get them on their way. They looked at them side-eyed too, like, all right, nothing else though. Try something else. We know you're gonna do it. We know you. Do you see what's happened? Look, they're now known. Oh my goodness, isn't that Obadiah? You know what was so interesting? I think it was like Gabarov or whatever had stated something, and what he had stated was actually an allusion. It was alluded to Obadiah. See, you have to understand where they're coming from. A lot of people, and when people talk about Islam, there was a fight in Islam. It was the schism. Okay, Islam was very much an Arab, and I would say this: believe it or not, and what a lot of people don't really know about this is that you've had a schism. That schism had taken place since the Greek Empire, since the Greeks. And you got to remember, the Greeks don't care. They'll just do whatever, adopt whatever, take control of whatever. Rome was still trying to heavily infiltrate the Greek infrastructures, because you still had a lot of the Greek Roman infrastructures over in Asia Minor from the time that Alexander went on out there, had conquered, then his generals went through. They didn't care what religion or spiritual authorities and things of that nature. Neither did the Romans. They don't care. Shout out to Brother Asaph. He sent me a picture, an article the other day regarding King Charles. And King Charles had done some sort of a Islamic prayer, and And he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna, I'm gonna get people mad because we're supposed to be Christendom and everything else." He said, "But but we have to." I think he said it to some extent. And I'll have to have Brother Asaph help me to clarify it, but he said it to some extent that we all need to be above religion for humanity's sake. It's the the humanisms, right? Hey, well, for humanity's sakes, because why? Because they already know where they're going to drive this ideological warfare into. They know what they're getting ready to structure this, the new structures of the Noahides, the new religion. Because why? Because their religion's construct, it failed. Our awakening was their failure coming to life. That's why the guarantors of Christendom, this place, has a problem. Black folks are no longer engaging in this. Black people like me talking, we're now a problem. Shalom, Brother Fast Nickel. How are we doing today?
Shalom, brother Karis. I just spent the last 2.5 hours. I've been up since 6 o'clock speaking to someone who's on the other side of the planet, uh, helping them with their finances and crypto.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a public service announcement. So I had one person sign up who has heard me on Brother Yakoba for months, and they finally said, "Hey, you know what? I needed to do crypto."
Mm-hmm.
And so this other person who lives on the other side of the planet, that's why I was up at 6 o'clock. I was helping them with their setting up some wealth with their life insurance, but also talking to them about crypto. And what I want to mention to everybody who's here, me, Brother Yakoba, we've talked about things happening, but to your point on Monday, you had mentioned, unfortunately, until people see the smoke, they don't want to do anything. And sometimes when you see the smoke, it's too late. And so what I want to say is America seems to be the last, like everything that we talk about, America is the last place that you see any of this stuff, because the country that this person is living, they told me they have the 15-minute cities in place. And what she told me is, which was fascinating, the way it works in this country, the country she's in, if you go outside the 15-minute cities, they charge you. So we've talked about this, but because we don't see it here, we don't necessarily believe, but it's happening. Like all of this stuff is happening outside of America.
If you're not in your zone.
Yeah. So in the country,
my goodness.
And I'll tell you offline, but like in the country she's at, if you want to go outside of her, like she said, the way the country is set up, it's set up for 15 minutes. Like everybody gets around on bicycle, walking. The transportation system is like supreme, so that it's optimal for 15-minute cities. But if you want to go outside the 15 minutes, they charge you. Like there is a charge per mile that you go outside, so it forces you to stay within the 15-minute city. So
yeah,
this stuff is real. Like for people to procrastinate because they're not seeing it. America, as they said, and they cloned Tyrone, America is the test case. Like America is going to be the last threshold, but it's happening everywhere else.
Well, I don't know if America will be the last threshold, because America, the failure of America is going to be shown. So the test case was, how do you subjugate the Most High's people? How do you control the Most High's people? And they lost control. So now the rest of the world, he that leadeth into captivity, they shall do what? They're going to go into captivity. They're going into captivity just in more familiar places. And as C. West says, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, a prison without walls. Absolutely.
Yeah, the 15-minute cities are prison without walls.
Mm-hmm. And again, well, how do you go? How do you flee? At that time, you won't be able to flee. At that time, yeah, you'll have a certain, as I've been telling people, there's going to be a certain time you're going to have a corridor.
Right.
What you're seeing with everything going on, you have to remember what the African Union did. They showed their hand. They showed their hand with Ghana. They showed their hand with the next steps. They showed their hand with what they're getting ready to produce. Why do you think the U.S. and Marco Rubio is on a tirade about the ICC, ICJ? We need to defund. We need to discredit. We need, because why? Because that's next.
You know, to your point of showing their hand, think of it like an iceberg. Showing their hand was just showing the tip, but under the water, there's a ton going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A ton. Because you have to now understand what is getting ready to happen. These nations are getting ready to see they're about to be rocked by the lack of resources.
Correct.
From the continent.
Correct.
So they're doing digital for resource control.
Right. And think about this. When they had that meeting 3 weeks ago, they didn't wake up the week prior and say, let's have a meeting. That was months in the planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they came through with a very interesting, wasn't that interesting, Brother Fats Nickel? In less than 3 months. Do you see what I'm saying? In less than 3 months, they already had the everything going on. They had the agenda. They had the people for that. You know how quickly that is? No. You're going behind the scenes and you're getting things done behind the scenes.
Right.
There's coordination happening behind the scenes. Sorry. Behind the scenes, you will not be able to see what's happening. You can't. You cannot know what's happening when you are the hostage.
When you are the hostage. And also think about it. When you're talking about world leaders, like, because of their schedules, like, you have to have plan in advance. Like, all of this stuff has been in the works. So anyone who thinks that it hasn't, they're being delusional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know,
go ahead,
many of the people are acting like Thomas. Like when he says, "Until I see the holes myself, I'm not going to believe." But if you wait till that moment, it might be too late for you.
Yeah, it's going to be too late because you're going to be already stuck in what? You're already going to be stuck in the system. And the system, let me show you where the system is headed so you all can kind of get an understanding. And I want to share this in the chat because this is from New York Times. I want to share this. They're closing up their borders. They're closing up what they once had been able to, operate in for the most part. And let me show you this, because now I always say this: nothing is coincidence.
Correct.
Here we go. This is now from the New York Times. Did the cyclospora outbreak start here? They're always going to blame us Mexicans. In central Mexico, a lettuce growing region, has been potentially linked to an outbreak in the U.S. that has sickened thousands. This is from Emiliano Rodriguez Mega. When this is as of today, July 22nd, this morning, when Carmen Ramirez learned that a parasite was turning Americans' bowels into gurgling time bombs and that the outbreak had been traced to Guanajuato. I hope I'm saying it. Her home central state in Mexico, she could not help but giggle. I found it pretty funny, Miss Ramirez said, while helping her father staff the counter at the family owned grocery store in Dr. Mora, a quiet agricultural town of about 30,000 people. Now we're mostly known because of the diarrhea in the U.S. She said, but she grew concerned when she saw the health officials said that they had traced cases of tainted iceberg back to her hometown, specifically to a shredding facility by Taylor Farms, a producer of vegetables and salad kits that has become a household name in the area. All right, so I'm gonna stop right there because to me, what they're trying to do, they're going to try to create, well, we can no longer bring in other imports. We can't import these things. We can't. So what's going to end up happening? The U.S. still has to export. The U.S. still has to export goods.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to cause a self-induced famine, which is already being caused right now.
Right.
But now they're going to try to say everywhere, everything else is, it's all getting messed up. All the stuff in Mexico is getting messed up. Think about what they just had. They did 50% tariffs on what? 50% tariffs for Canada?
They're boxing you in.
Yes. This war is being used to box you in. Because they know you're not going to have anywhere to run. You're not going to have anywhere to hide.
Correct. You have to, everything that's going on, the war, the Clarity Act, like you can't look at these things on an individual basis because they're using it like a chessboard. Like all of these things are being used for the ultimate goal of 2030.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the agenda is here. They're now within a 48-month window and counting. If you think about it, it's now 42 months. If you think about it, 42 months. After 3.5 years. I'm just saying, Jacoba did show that graphic. I'm just saying. Yeah. All of a sudden, now, yes, Sister Chantel, they're hurting. They're hurting. They're hurting for the culling of the chattel. Their cattle, their chattel. They're preparing for the slaughter. Of who? Mainly them, not really us. Remember what is going on, as I had stated this clearly, what is going on, and now that you're seeing what's happening, the UN has now been put on notice, and the whole world has been put on notice. Hey, don't mess with black folks. We're now telling you, don't mess with our people. We're now saying, don't mess with them. Because why? Because now we're seeing them. That was a declaration. The reality was, when I was reading Jeremiah 31 yesterday, we actually saw that because that was actually Ephraim. Ephraim had made and posted, it said, and post this. Make it known to the nations. Post it. Yasharel, Ephraim, and then you have House of Israel, which is Ephraim, and now you have House of Judah, which is us here, which is Zion. They made the call. They heard us, and what they did, they answered with policy. They answered with the declaration. And guess what? The whole world accepted that declaration. They didn't have to accept it, but they had to hear it.
Right.
They had to cast a lot. They had to declare, are you in this, or are you going to reject it? Or are you going to not have an opinion? But you are going to be on record. And they were on record. I think that really does pass by a lot of our people how significant that was, because you get these other channels here in the YouTube space, YouTube verse. Oh, well, America's our land, and okay.
And think about of all the countries, only 3 outwardly said no.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the 3. The 2, the U.S. and that little country over there in the east that are tied to the hip. And then when you look at Argentina,
come on.
Argentina was the place that the Germans all ran to.
Come on. It's a case study. What else happened in Argentina? It wasn't just the Germans.
They got rid of all the melanated.
Yep. And who is in terms of what the Eastern Mediterranean nation, outside of that Eastern Mediterranean nation, outside of Europe, besides America, who has the largest population of those others, those pretenders?
That's that country that we're talking about.
Exactly. And who now has been frantically buying up land in the Patagonian region of Argentina?
Hey, just listen, you got to be blind not to see it.
Because why? They're getting kicked out. We told you that. They're going to get kicked out of the land. There are some reports, and I wanted to see it and find it, that a lot of the U.S. forces and some U.S. bases are closing in the region, and they're getting relocated over into that Eastern Mediterranean nation. Why is that? Look, it's a consolidation effort. They're being they're being forced out.
The thing that I've been saying, and I said it to the person that I was on the phone on Zoom with. I had mentioned to you how we need to work together as a group, and a week ago, or I guess this weekend, is when there was the grouping. You, Brother Yakova, Sister Shauna, Pastor Rick, all came on the one platform. Whether we like it or not, I know that everybody has their individual platforms, but we're very closely coming to a point where we have to work together and put our resources together, because as you've been saying, as Brother Yakova, Sister Shauna, Pastor Rick, they're coming for you. So you have to work together to be able to defend against them.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we have is really our relationship value. Yes. It is. It's our relationship value. Look, if I had the means and the funds, there would have been a lot more that I would have been able to do. Trust me. If this had been about 10, 15 years ago, I would have been able to do much more. I would have been able to do this,
But
that,
all of
knock
us,
out this.
and that's the case for all of us. Like we're all
Yeah,
we're all
it's
in
sad.
a weird predicament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was I was just lamenting on the phone with Brother Fastnickel about some things because I'm like, man, how long? Because we clearly see where we're at. Nope, look, we're not dumb, we're not stupid. We see where we're at. We see what they're going to try to do. The test cases that they tried to do. Well, we're going to look at this, we're going to look that, right? What happened last year? Last year, they did a test case. Okay, let's bomb Iran and see what Iran does, right? And then they said, all right, well, we need to now go into these negotiations, right? They went to the negotiations, and then they had those sham because it was sham. They had the sham negotiations because why? Because as a serpent, as a snake, you slither.
Right.
You're slithering in, right? You're slowly approaching your prey, and you're not being hostile. Your nature is hostile, but you're not being as hostile because, they know. But guess what? They got them to what? Striking distance. February 28th, they were in striking distance. Oh, yeah, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. They even had major concessions that they were giving up. Even with Venezuela, they were going to try to give them like a couple of different things. Cuba, they're trying to give them some islands. Last I heard. They probably pulled that back because they see that Iran is is giving them the business. Oh yeah. Don't no.
I can't speak for the Caribbean because the Caribbean have melanated people. So, but when it comes to Europe, people that live in Europe, they've already bent the knee. They comply to everything. It's Americans where they don't want to give up the guns, etc. Like Americans have not bent the knee. That's the one area that they need to get them to bend. But when you look at Europe and these countries over there, they have all submitted.
Yeah.
And they do it happily.
Yep. Yeah, they're in total compliance.
Total compliance.
And they know that they don't have anywhere else to go. They're stuck. So they're going to go down with the ship. That's the same thing. Their new Prime Minister Barton, right? He just got in, I think, yesterday or the day before, and he had already stated, yeah, the U.S. can use their base, Diego Garcia. He stated that, and they've already acquiesced over to that Eastern Mediterranean nation. So as far as I look at it, Britain's done.
And maybe the reason why they have all complied is because spiritually they're dead.
Yeah. Well, remember, it's a death culture. So they're going to then, if you're living, then I guess you're living. If not, if you're living, then you're going to be living in a very bad situation. And they're going to be what? They're going to be seeking death and not be able to find it. They're going to be linking up into that matrix. They're going to augment. Transhumanism. Let's get you back on the system. We can do a diagnosis. We can get you in your pods. We can get you to where your viability of life. We all think that this is sci-fi. This isn't sci-fi.
Nope.
This is predictive programming telling them what they are getting ready to do.
So very true.
So now, as America's targeting nuclear sites, the Pickaxe Mountain, and Iran said, look, you're not going to do anything anymore. Do you see what has actually happened? These nations have stood up to Babylon. this place is in trouble. Because remember, the tactics have to be the bullying tactics. They even told that to Trump, we're not going to be bullied anymore. Your tactics are over. And then now they're like, oh, Iran wants to make a deal so bad. Iran wants to make a deal so bad. We're so, and now he's sounding like a broken record. Because why? Because that's the only thing that they've been able to do. They told him, look, and I would argue this, they more than likely gave the United States a time frame.
I would agree with that.
You need to get your people out of here by this date, or else we're going to obliterate everybody. You have 30 days. You have 60 days. Are you going to come to the table? We'll come to the table when your people leave. Now they're like, oh, we need to get the Strait of Hormuz. We need to get this together. It went from liberating, right? Their messaging is so jacked up. It went from liberating the people of Iran to nuclear to controlling the Strait of Hormuz. They don't know what they want. What they want is they're trying to eliminate Iran because they know prophetically that Iran is going to carry on out something that the Most High has already declared. That's what they're trying to do. They know what the scriptures say. They're just afraid that as they get closer to the time of the end, who are you going to look? If you know that the tow truck person is coming to get your car, okay? You cannot fight you can't fight that company, right? You can't fight Ford, Chevy, okay? You can't fight the company, but you see a lot of people acting a fool when that tow truck comes on up and they try to do what? Fight the tow truck driver. I got to fight the tow truck driver because I can't even reach those other people that's actually in charge. He's just the tow truck driver. He doesn't know. They're just doing what they've been told to do.
And they're a third-party company.
Yep, and they're a third party. That's what the Mossad's doing. He's contracting folks on that. What did he say? He said, I'm going to use these other nations. But now we're seeing it. Hello, Sister Chantel. How's my UK correspondent on out there surviving?
Hello. I'm sorry if you can't hear me too well. I'm out, so. But I just wanted to say in regards to what you said about this country, yes, and then some, yes. Because
he sealed y'all's fate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. You know what? I'm not even bothered because again, we know our salvation, and we know who this is about. We know that this is their time now. So, I mean, we're going to be in for a rough ride like everyone else, but we are going to be witnesses to this. This is the Most High's hand being stretched forth. This is not for us. So, I hear a lot of people getting, shaken about all of this, and I'm like, man, if you read scriptures, you wouldn't be stressing like this. And it's like, even with some of our people, even if you don't really know scriptures like that, it's funny how these people like to subscribe to karma, right? But now when it's on them, they don't want to know anything about karma. They don't want to know that, but hey, this is your manifest destiny. Your destiny is manifesting right before your eyes, all of them. Because this is like, I know, in regards to them giving up their guns and not fighting, that's true. But you also have to remember that Europe has had a lot longer of going through indoctrination. What you've got is like the end result of those that fled. But the ones that stayed here, they literally have been hammered down. If you know your European history, and you know what happened during, certain time frames. Look, when they put us in captivity, these people are so vulgar. It doesn't mean it wasn't the end of them subjugating their own people. All they know is wickedness. So, yeah, I mean, they kind of like sort of softened on them. But the minute we're gone, oh my gosh, they won't cope. They won't cope. No, sorry. Got to check it off. That's charity beggars trying to. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere. These people trying to beg money from you. Anyway, I need to go because I'm kind of ignoring my daughter right now. So, shalom everybody. I'm just gonna be listening in the background.
Thank you, Sister Chantel, for that UK update from the streets of London. Londoninium. Oh man. I wanted to bring this article up here. This is a big deal. And I want to say fair use. This is for educational purposes. Because, once I have this triggers an algorithm and the trolls will be on out there. So all my folks that have wrenches, that have, that are given the authority to police the chat, please do. All right, I see you coming in, Minister Rick. You're going to need to fix your audio. This is a big one. In my opinion, this is a big one. Ma'am Donnie calls Netanyahu. Let me put you on mute real quick. Got a lot of feedback going on there. Excuse me. There we go. Ma'am Donnie calls Netanyahu a war criminal and calls on U.S. to arrest him. Wow. You can't you can't arrest the little horn. But here's the thing: a lot of people don't know what this place is. It's interesting. No, they're not going to arrest him, but what this is doing, it's actually priming. All right, let me read this article and I'll tell you what this is exactly. So yeah, don't get it twisted. There's an emotional design to this, emotional element. So Mayor Zoran Mandali challenged the United States to execute an international arrest warrant against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, which New York itself cannot do. This is by Liam Stack, July 21st, 2026. This is a couple days ago. Mayor Zoran Mandani on Tuesday night challenged the federal government to execute an international arrest warrant against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, calling him a war criminal and the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people. In a striking video statement, the mayor said the city law department explored whether the New York Police Department could arrest the Israeli Prime Minister during his expected visit to the city in September, but that the city did not have the independent legal authority to do so. The mayor's announcement came days after he told Lulu Garcia last week on The Interview, a New York Times show, that he had been in active conversation with the city's lawyers about executing a warrant issued for Netanyahu in 2024 by the International Criminal Court. So, said on Tuesday, Mr. Mamdani said in the video that those conversations had led his administration to determine that it did not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The funny thing is, and I'm going to get to this, because this warrants going a little in depth. No, it's not going to happen. But what that is doing is there's a couple different facets to this. They're trying to get people emotionally drawn in to the fact that, number one, yeah, it's wickedness that they're doing over there. It's wicked. But what they're trying to do, they're now trying to polarize the nation. Oh, are you going to have them this? Are they going to look? Of course, this dude should have been in The Hague since 2024. He should have been in The Hague.
Is it because they're still trying to get that civil war going?
Bingo. Because again, if they do that to Netanyahu, you have to understand Iran could launch a complaint. Trump started a war, and he took out, and he's been taking on out civilian targets. When you are even targeting, if you're a targeting officer, they tell you what to target, who to target, how to target. I've been through that course. I got the certificate. I remember I was doing that 2012 through 2014. You have to be able to understand, because they call it, there's rules of war. War has rules. So then, because if you're in the confines of those, the moment you step out of the confines, which the United States did, technically speaking, people may not like this. It may sound horrible. Sorry, but I'm just telling you the truth. Technically speaking, because of what the U.S. did, Iran has in every right to literally target a preschool here in the United States. Who would want to volunteer their elementary school sons and daughters to make right? That's divine punishment. That's divine justice. Do you not know that David had to carry out divine justice and punishment for Ahithophel, I believe, Ahithophel, when his family was slaughtered by Saul's family? That's biblical. Oh well, I don't read the Bible like that anymore. Okay. All of a sudden, people don't read the. I don't know where that's at in the Bible. Oh, David did that. I don't know. Did Jesus do it? No, Jesus said to love your brother as thyself. Love your neighbor. Love your brother. Love the Most High as thyself. See, love is an action word that these people. So the we're here. The love of many has now waxed cold.
So
They don't even love themselves. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what most people. So the issue with most people, they'll look at love your neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't realize, okay, if you decide not to love your neighbor, you're going to fall into the law that's mentioned in the Old Testament. So they never connect the two. They just look at loving your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you don't love your neighbor? There's a consequence to that.
Bingo. Because the consequence is that the law was never done away with, but you are perfected through who? Through Yahusha as what? As a sacrifice. And if you're living as an example that he has led, then you are not just adhering to the law, but you're operating in the context of the law that the Most High had. You'll be perfect. Follow me. You'll be perfect.
Mm.
It's hard. Hey, you're a rich person. Sell all your stuff. Follow me, and that'll be perfect. The nods of the Most High. What? Excuse me? You know I got bills to pay on my estate. You know I got mouths to feed. You know I'm running a little family business on out there. I just can't do all that. You'll be perfect. You know how hard that would be, especially now here. So yes, this is to foment. Because why? Are you going to be on the side of wickedness, or are you going to be on the side of righteousness? We've already told you that this was a wicked nation. We already told you that. But now this is what left them exposed. This exposes them. There's exposure here. Whenever you're not doing anything righteously, you are exposed. And the U.S. is now exposed, right? Look, Obadiah, chapter 1, the wisdom of Teman is destroyed because why? It's destroyed because there is an actual standard that they don't want to adhere to. For those that have kidnapped, look, kidnappers get death. Sorry. Why is your nation going to die? Because they profited and extorted and colluded and encouraged kidnapping. Man, you just saw that with Maduro. I'm just saying. So imagine another nation going on in there and pulling the same thing against the United States. Imagine this. Let's put this into perspective. All right, Minister Rick, let's get you back on here.
Oh, how are you today?
Yeah, Mr. Rick. There we go. All right, you're still okay. There we go. So imagine this perspective. Imagine if China or Russia came through and snatched up Netanyahu. I would actually say, imagine if that was China. And China did a military operation just like the United States. What could the United States do or say? They couldn't say anything. No. Nope. They had a warrant. You all had a warrant for Maduro. The ICC has a warrant for Netanyahu. We're just exercising a warrant. You all did the same thing.
They set the precedent.
They set the precedent.
Well, see, that's the thing. They want there's no precedence in lawfare. Lawfare means you make the law, and they're trying to use the same lawfare they used on us, started with Jim Crow internationally. So they're Jim Crow in the whole world is what they want to do.
Well, yeah, but the world is not playing that. You see that? They now have the coalition, which is through BRICS, obviously, but that's the global South. Look, I told people, people don't play with wickedness. These folks are forming up like Voltron, and when they get their helmet on, I'm talking about that Voltron helmet, and then the face guard goes up. Voltron, defender of the universe.
But they no longer have the might to make right.
Yeah, well, come on. Yeah, say that again, Minister Rick.
They no longer have the might to make right. So they're not calling the tune. And usually when an empire falls, there's some type of technology or something that the next company, the next country empire comes up with that defeats the prior one. It seems to always happen. You can go down to the type of warfare, anything like that. So they're done.
So are you trying to tell me, Minister Rick, that they that excursion, that failed excursion into Iran, it made the U.S. vulnerable? Is
They
that
might
what
have been. They might as well have been running horses and cavalry in there, because they're fighting the last war, and these people are fighting the 21st century war. So
isn't that crazy?
they'll eclipse. They were
Isn't that
talking
crazy?
about the launch tubes on their ships are not big. And the Chinese have bigger launch tubes and can swap out missiles and have more flexibility in the type of warfare. But they were so busy getting high on their own supply and the military industrial concepts grifting the country that they literally do not have the weapons or the strategies to fight. It was good that you got out of the military. I feel sorry for the people who are still in. I have to pray for those who are melanated.
Yeah, me too. And that's the thing that we have to pray for our people, because our people are on over there, in this and again, I wanted to show this real quick.
The problem for the military, I would guess, is similar to the problem with corporations in general. They want to charge the same prices, but they're skimping on the materials.
Well, they didn't realize that they didn't want to go to Netflix. They still wanted to keep their rental stores, and because hey, we got a business model, we're making money, we're not going to change. And the new technology came in, and they're obsolete, and then they're gone, just like those corporations, like Kodak, they're gone.
Yeah, you said Kodak. You said Kodak. I don't even think people know what Kodak is anymore. What's a
young people would know.
What's a Polaroid? What's a let me stop a Polaroid. Let me get some Polaroid cartridges. Let me get
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Let me go. They know about going to the video rental store.
Mm-hmm. Let me show you this. This is about 3 minutes. I want you to see this. So this is from a U.S. soldier's point of view. It looks to me like this is a gym facility. Like people are in the PT lab. Yeah. Then you see like the medicine ball. It looks like to me it's a gym. Yeah, you see like people in their workout clothes. Just getting to the shelters.
Okay.
So you hear the early warning and detection systems. They got incoming coming. They're trying to get into the hardened shelters. Kevlars and flax. And most people, yeah, they're coming from the gym. They're just in their PT gear, so they really have no type of protection. So they're hunkering down. I just want to see
Guys,
what
off the walls if we can. Try to get a TBI.
So now they're waiting.
Brother Cass, do you have any idea where this is at?
This is supposed to be in Jordan. So chances are what ended up happening, I'm going to say this is probably not at the base. So there's a couple different bases in Jordan. So more than, because the last one, when you are looking at this, so this is the, let me show you this one because this is one I've shared. This is the, so yeah, so those are attacks that's coming down. And then you also, yeah, go ahead.
The trajectory, those are missiles. Those are not drones that are coming down, right? And they're not the cruise missiles. Those are more like ballistic. And the thing I want to ask, independent sources are saying in other media outlets that they're really not targeting the soldiers. They're blowing up the military infrastructure. They're not like trying to kill maximum people like our forces do. They're coming after where the planes are, where the things are. See, the soldiers are fleeing where the equipment is, but the missiles are really coming for the equipment.
Yeah, they're hitting the hangars. There's still going to be obviously soldiers within the hangars, especially the airmen that are doing the maintenance. So that's why, you know, you had some folks going through. You could relatively, you know, get out of those hangars in about a good 10, 15 minutes. You just have to, you know, you're running on the tarmac and you're getting close to the ground. You know, as it's not the most ideal position, it's not, but you know, you get close to the ground to obviously delay or to not be in a shrapnel range or a blast range of any type of debris that gets blown on up.
Yeah, if it's not an air burst, it's not going to hit you. If it's hitting the ground, if you're on the ground, you're good.
Well, it's not that you're good; it's just that your chances for survival increases a little bit more.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So if it lands on you, then you're just out of luck. You know, and that's where. See, those are the impacts.
Brother Karras, are you hearing anything?
Actually,
are you
I can hear you now.
Are you hearing anything that they're going to shut the Strait of Hormuz down permanently?
They're shutting the Strait of Hormuz down while they are continuing. While they're continuing this conflict. Now it could be shut down. Right now, it's shut down permanently. And I wouldn't say permanently. They'll like to say, let me give a better word. So I'm not going to say permanently.
Indefinitely.
But it looks like it's shut down until further notice, right?
Yeah.
Until further notice.
Now the Red Sea route for Saudi oil, they can still get through the Suez Canal, but if the Suez
Well,
Canal,
no, they can, but they can't.
okay,
Okay,
because the Egyptians
they,
could stop that actually, but I
yes,
don't know if they
and you
have
got
the
to
have.
remember, they got spotters all up and down that Red Sea.
Well, remember, what was it? A month
They
ago
got
we talked
spotters all
about
up and down that Red
the
Sea,
Was it the
Yeah.
UAE
and
that got out of OPEC because they got their own pipeline system set up?
yeah, but even though you may have your pipeline system, rest assured that okay. So here's the reality: not all Arabs actually like the regime that they have. It's basically they'll say it for the most part. It's an imposter regime. A lot of those families. They are very much um, cryptic, for lack of better words.
Okay.
Okay.
And is that
Yes.
because of the form of Shiite Sunni?
Well,
The,
no, these folks were picked by the British on the way out, so
Yeah, and
they're like pygmies.
oh,
well, they were, but they also have a lot of other ties to that Eastern Mediterranean nation.
Well, it is reputed that at the beginning, that Saudi family is actually not who they purport to be.
Yes, yes, yes. So all of those families that's there, that's why they're very intense to support and defend, right, that Eastern Mediterranean nation. So when people try to say, "Oh, these other nations are going to, the Middle East are going to do X, Y, and Z," no, not really. The only one that they don't really have control over in the Middle East is Egypt. Egypt is a problem for them. El Sisi is a problem for them. And now that Egypt has really gone over to BRICS formally, they are if they could overthrow the leadership in Egypt, they would try to. The problem is that the leadership in Egypt is very, very much popular, and they're one of the main lifelines in supporting the Palestinians over in that Eastern Mediterranean nation. So that's why these countries were mad because what was going on earlier, especially like it was like last year. Egypt would then do the control points. They'll let the folks on in. They'll let the food stuff and the grains in, but then then the Palestinians would not be able to go to the collection points because they fire at them at the collection points. That's been proven. This isn't like a speculatory thing. This has been proven by the ICC, the ICJ. It's been proven by the UN and all of their regulatory bodies of how things have occurred.
Well, I understand the very word Arab means mixed, and until
Mm-hmm.
you really started talking about it, I didn't realize that there was a Greek admixture. I was thinking that they're also, maybe biblically kind of related to Ishmaelites, but that's in their books they say that, but uh, that's a whole different thing. So they really
It's all
don't have
admixture.
an agenda that's unified. They're not unified people with a unified agenda.
Well, so the Arabs not really and they'll try to have their royal family roots, of Adnani, Katanis, and things of that nature. Um, but they actually know who they are, who they have. They actually know what it is that is who's in control. We got to remember the people that are in control um are not necessarily it, so they'll try to, come on up with a narrative, but at the same time, this is why they don't like the quote unquote DNA test. Well, they're actually Greeks.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of, and actually they're not just Greeks, but there's a Greek admixture with a lot of um what was with a lot of Hamitic admixture.
Well, it's interesting. There's another. I think I may have sent it to your email. This other website, and they were talking about Ibrahim Traore and the problems he's having in the country. And much like another people, when you deal with a problem you're having with the Arabs or things that they're doing in their country, or when you talk about their slave trade and things like that, they default to the same position that another people talk about and say, "Oh, you're criticizing Islam."
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
conflate to the religion like these some other people conflate to the religion, and that's very interesting. Even though Ibrahim tries, he purports to be he's a Muslim, he's trying to separate that sectarianism and the
Yes.
political agenda from it, so his people can develop as a country, because they're actually trying to establish a caliphate, as opposed to he's trying to have sovereignty. That's a threat to his sovereignty as well as anything coming from the West.
Well, yeah, and you got to remember, we got hit with Christianity. The ones that stayed, they had Christianity. Um, they took a hit with Christianity, and they've also taken a hit with Islam, because Islam came down from the north, and Christianity basically came in from the Christianity came in from the water, from
Okay.
the shores. So, when people talk about the sea peoples, they talk about the Bronze Age and the sea peoples. We are dealing with the sea peoples. These are them.
Ibrahim
This
Traore, they said literally in the speech, and I have to check out. I don't think it was AI. He was talking about. Yeah, they quoted his speech. He was literally he was saying a lot of things that we say over here. He talked about the
Mhm.
Stockholm syndrome
Yeah,
of with Arabs. That
yeah. He
certain people
literally
have.
had that speech on Monday. He had that speech on Monday, and they were the Arab community. They were acting just like who? Just like Greeks,
Yeah,
just like the Romans. Because
that
why?
East,
Because they're
the Eastern
because they are.
Mediterranean nation as well.
Yeah, because they're the same people. It's just that they're oppressing. Literally, they're oppressing another phonetic group that is actually within the same grouping. That's why they don't like to have DNA tests. The DNA test will show there is nothing that's there. They're more connected to Central Asia, Europe, and a little bit of over there in the in the southern Greece areas.
I know they have churches in Burkina Faso as well, but are there people there that are realizing or recognizing or declaring themselves to be Israelites as well?
I haven't seen that. I think if anything, they're just still trying to put the pieces together in terms of fighting against, white supremacy. I mean, to be quite honest. So, for a lot of people, it is one of those things. It's like this. You don't really think about much if you're trying to, you know, um
Existential struggle for survival.
exactly. Like a lot of folks, if I'm running into that shelter that you just saw, if I'm running on into there, I'm not thinking about, what? I wonder if this is part of all the prophecies that I'd be here, and that you're not thinking about that. And for a lot of these folks, they're starting to be aware of it, but it's not necessarily on the forefront of their minds.
Self-preservation is the top priority when that stuff comes down.
Yeah, exactly. And not Cammy says, do you believe that the Muslims are more indoctrinated than the Christians? Honestly, they're about the same. They're about the same. One's more performative for cultural efficacy. The other, you don't have to have the performative nature here in the United States, right? Because it's not, that isn't an outcome of social status. You know, I'm just saying, like, oh well, such and such goes to this church, and such go. That's not how that goes, especially here in the United States. They are more in that construct. It is very performative to be able to have the social influence with different things. But again, when you're on out there, and you, as I had stated earlier on this channel, a couple years ago, I'd stated this. I said, listen, the what we're saying easily breaks up. It easily it easily defunks the notion of Islam. Islam, the way that Islam was even able to be successful, just like with Christianity, it was based off of the prophets. Same with Christianity. The only thing about Islam, they said, well, we're not going to serve, they just don't want to serve Yahusha. They recognize Yahusha, but they don't want to serve him. Because why? Because you have to remember, Islam is more of it's a Edomite. Here's my Edomite version. I'll just stick with Islam, right? Because why? Because everything's by the sword. Convert or die. Christianity is still the sword. The cross is the sword. Don't get that twisted, because he didn't die on the cross. He hung from a tree. Don't get that twisted. They just tried to shape that because, again, it's the same thing. It was the same thing until about 600 AD. That's how that was, or it's like 620 something AD.
Well, the icon of Christianity is the defeated Christ. They don't show him in the resurrection. They don't show him in victory. They show him at the high point of Asatan when he's hanging on the cross. So
at the most lowly.
It's a death cult.
Yeah, it's the most lowly. Look, they were at the highest when we were subjugated, when we weren't even thinking about who we were, when we were just going through the motions. Well, Jesus loves me, and Jesus will take care. Because again, that was our conditioning. Nobody here. So yeah, go ahead.
They give you a baby that's not demanding anything of you, and a man just impaled to a cross that can't do anything, and that's their icons. So it's so very much serving the Roman Empire. And there's kind of in Muhammad's upbringing, there's a lot of Roman influence in just how he came upon the scene. So I mean, the Romans have their finger in that. A lot of people may dispute that, but I mean, his even being set up. So, and I think the problem they have with Christianity at the time, that Islam didn't do what the Romans wanted them to do in regards to Jerusalem. So then it became a thing of war. But
it wasn't just Jerusalem. It was the administrating of the area that they wanted to call Jerusalem. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How many Jerusalems or Salems do we have here in the United States? We have a lot. Bethlehems. We have a lot of. You see what I'm saying? So they were just, because again, that was the most accessible on the Eastern Mediterranean coast.
And they wanted him to be a proxy, basically. And he
Yes.
didn't go for it. And then the war got on.
Yeah. So then when you saw what ended up happening, he was able to quickly spread west, because then what ended up happening, he spread west and then went up into Europe. Europe had to defend that for a couple centuries. That's when you had the Negroes, Yahya Ben Negro, because you had our people going up into Europe. We were still traversing, we were still living our lives, we were still being obviously very mercantile, we were still establishing and having trade routes established over in the Saharan. Not a lot of people could get up and down the Saharan routes. Even for the Arabs could only come down because of who? Because of black folks showing them the way.
Basically, we could get along with everybody and trade with everybody.
Yeah, they're and again, they're not out there like that. I've been in their spaces. I've been in their culture. They're not out there in the sun like that. You don't know who's out there? More black folks.
Well, they have
Folks
that.
in Africa.
They have that picture in the supposed Jerusalem from like 1925 or on the early camera and stuff like that. You don't see anything but black people in there. And I
Yeah.
think that's in the area that they call Jerusalem, but there's nobody but black in there.
Exactly. But even though I still look at that's not the real Jerusalem. And you even
I'm
have
with you, Kobo.
the Arab
I'm with you,
Scouts.
Kobo, on that too.
Yeah, you've had a lot, and now there's more people coming on out and these AI generated videos, and you now have folks that from the white pill bottles, saying the same thing, and what's now occurring is you had a lot of our people, because what will our people do? Our people will go where the resources are. Oh, you can make money here? Okay. It's the same thing in Africa. How many Africans come here to the United States to make money? A lot.
Yep.
What would we do? We were drug on out here via what? Transatlantic slave trade or slave trade. Our ancestors were tied. And in that time frame, that wasn't, those areas were still very much Arabian Peninsula. And you have to understand, even in Saudi Arabia, I think was established in like the 1920s. Sykes-Picot. That's when it was established. But a lot of people don't know that Saudi Arabia didn't get rid of slavery until the 1930s.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not a thing. And once President Obama took out Libya, and him and Hillary, they opened up the slave markets again. What's interesting about this group, years ago in Chicago, I met, we were in politics then. This was like before Harold Washington and the days when we were doing that. That group that went to Israel, that's set up by the leaders, Ben Israel and that whole group. I may have actually met him. I definitely met some of his people. And they were coming over there, and we weren't talking or thinking about awakening. They're saying, we're the true Israelites, but they thought that was the true land. But I thought those were the most arrogant, loopy people I ever thought. And I wonder, are any of them awakening to the fact, hey, we may have emigrated to the wrong place?
Well, if they did, do you think that they're going to be able to leave like that?
No, they got them drafted into the military service. It's funny.
Bingo.
As bad as they oppress them, they're drafted into the military service, and the Orthodox are still resisting and refusing to fight.
But they'll have our people. They'll have our people there in a minute.
Yep.
In a minute. No. Look, no worries, no concerns. But again, you got to remember. For a lot of our people, vanity is still a very hard concept for a lot of our people. Even when they know that they're wrong, they'll ride that vanity train through, to their utter destruction. So that's why they're still there. Even though time and again it's proved that the sub-Saharan continent is obviously there. Yeha, Ethiopia is there, but it's a lot of it's the pride that we have, and I'm not saying that we have to bag on people because it's not something that we can fix. That's the Most High issue. We just pray for our people, but now,
God has
the evidence is coming out. Yeah, go ahead.
the promise is that he's going to sanctify us and do a work, and there's a lot of work going to be doing us. I think there's going to be more work being done in us, exercising Babylon out of us, than actually the physical moving, because what's happening now is that I believe the Most High is even acting on these people to make it harder here, to make us make bricks without straw, figuratively, and a lot of these hard times that are coming here. Definitely, I believe the Most High is behind that, and He's elevated just the perfect vessel to do that. So, because really, all the arguments about this being our land and FBA and everything we depended on, this Constitution and the districts and all that, that's being just dissembled, much like the urban apologists were dissembled by the truth coming out. Now the ops FBA movement is being dissembled by the truth coming out. So the Most High is definitely in the hand. So we may have to stay in here the heat a little while longer to get some get right in us for the land, and have the Most High take out and do the change. At the same time, those of us who are following him, the glory of the Most High is shining upon us, and our words have more power. I thought, not to go on, but I find our words are more powerful now. You would think we had to do this, and I mean, we're not getting in the street, we're not doing the social action, we're not doing all this stuff, we're not rioting and anything like that. But our words are hitting like bombs. Just our words.
Yeah, they can't stand what it is that we're saying, and it's not that our words. Look, I don't speak on my own, right? When people say, "Well, is it some?" When I tell you something, I'll tell you this is my opinion. But when it's not, or when it's biblical, then I try to refer you to the scripture. Because why? Because that foundation is something that they can't run away from. See, it was nice and dandy when we were ignorant of what? Of Satan's devices.
Yeah.
Man, when we were ignorant of Satan's devices, we couldn't argue with Tim LaHaye. We're about to get raptured, huh?
The Apostle Paul used to use a disclaimer. He say, "Not God, but I, not but I." He delineates when he was speaking from himself. But it seems right to me, kind of like Yacoba. He put a disclaimer in there. But when he was speaking from the scripture, then he made that. And I mean, you're always bringing up passages and things like that when you just don't come with a point. Well, that's just how I feel. And much of our deception and oppression here is come from being hooked on a feeling and the manipulating the feelings, and that is not working at this time.
Man, feelings will do what? They'll run you into war, won't they? Feelings will run you into war. Isn't that what Trump said? Trump said, "I had a feeling." He said, "Hooked on the feeling, da 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 da. Iran was coming, da 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 da." They done short. They done shut the straight down, and no boats are coming my way.
There was nothing. Much of the economic takeover of this country started with they were always about the economy, but with the Reagan administration, he made it be good to be greedy. Greed and avarice are no longer a bad thing. But he did one thing. When they blew up those 200 of your former Marines folks, he got out of there. He just moved out. He got out of Lebanon.
Got out.
This fool ain't got sense enough to see that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Look, I'm going to tell you, there's more than likely there's wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. But what they don't want to do would how do you message that to the troops? Hey, we got to get up on out of here. How do you message that to these other countries? Because now these other countries are going to be betrayed, and they're going to say, right, they're going to send their emissaries over to Iran, and then they're going to turn. That's what's going to end up happening. That country is a friend, and then it could turn into a foe. That's the real situation. Okay, you're cutting us off. You're not paying for us, and we got all this stuff, all this destruction. That's the panic. That's not just the panic for. Here's a very, very startling figure regarding Jordan. I don't think a lot of people understand this, but this is regarding Jordan. It's rumored to be estimated. It's like 50% of Jordanians are of Palestinian descent. Some people just went and took the Jordanian citizenship and just forgot about their land. You know, they just moved on.
The people from that Eastern Europe, Eastern Mediterranean nation were saying, "Well, you have your state. It's Jordan." They literally were saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people don't know that that Jordan back in the day did take over parts of the West Bank. And they had actually won a war because it wasn't actually parts of the reason they took over parts of the West Bank is because there was an incursion, however you want to call it, back in like I think 1973. They don't teach you about this in the history books here. That Eastern Mediterranean nation, they lost. They tried to go over into Jordan, and they lost. And then Jordan fought them back, went into the Dead Sea Valley, and then went over into the West Bank. They don't like to tell you that. Amazingly, that is omitted from history books.
Well, they can't show any losses anyway. They have to. They're another paper tiger that has to push this image of this invincible military, even though they got kicked out of Lebanon before, and but they've got to put that. So they're basically going with this whole air power, and you're in the military. This situation, it goes back to World War II. This idea that the bomber will always get through, that you could bomb your way to victory, going back into even to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. What scared the Japanese into stopping the war? They were concerned that the Russians were going to invade. The Russians had already rolled into Manchuria. They finished in Europe. They rolled the tanks into Manchuria. They were pushing back the Japanese there, and they were afraid that they would invade. They would invade Japan. That's why they said, we'll take the lesser of two evils and surrender to the Americans.
Yeah, look, I'm seeing the articles. Nolan Wells' first autopsy didn't have water in lungs, so he didn't drown. So he was deleted and put in water. We kind of already understood that. C. West says, is that what Trump meant when he said that Arab countries were going to pay to rebuild the Middle East? Yeah, because he destroyed the Middle East, and now he's going to try to have somebody else fix it up. That's what they do.
Just like all the casinos.
Yeah. Look, I destroyed your stuff. Now you fix it up. So now here we are in this time. This is a valid decision for the Arabs. And if you don't, what they were saying, what a lot of these pundits and independent journalists were saying here on YouTube, was that the U.S. may not have the amount of weapons, armament, materials to be able to defend those Middle Eastern countries. So more than likely, they may have to pull back into that Eastern Mediterranean nation.
My understanding, Karis, is they are in fact doing that.
They may be, yeah.
So that the fact is, you know more about the Patriot missiles and all this whole idea about it. The thing is, Esau is not interested in defense or defensive weapons. They just let that totally go. He was always going to be on offense and fighting you. So when the warfare changes, when you actually have to defend against something, then they're at a loss because he can't sword. That's so what they're doing now is attack, attack, attack. We're just going to bomb you. There's a bomb, bomb, bomb. So they're just striking with the sword and at an object they can't miss, basically at a mountain, at an immovable mountain, and they're going to wear themselves out attacking something that they cannot defeat, which is literally the land. Natural forces, a mountain, and you can't write this stuff, but they did in the Bible. There's no way they can win, and they will not withdraw, and that's going to give us the quantas. One good thing is they're doing so much over there, they're not going to have as much to oppress us over here like they'd like to, because there's so much resources going over there. Not that we won't see some, but as long as they're over there, they can't do all.
Well, I would, and I would say this for any service member that is over there that has to go to that Eastern Mediterranean nation, stay on base. Don't go out to town. Stay on base, because then they will be deleted, and then they'll have some sort of crazy mistake, and they will never get prosecuted at all. They won't. Well, oh, it's a military thing. We'll take it from here. They won't get nope.
My mother went to Israel. She's late. She just died this year, but she has stories like she went with a group, a Bible group or something over there to visit Israel. So she had about $1,000. She said, "I'm going to take this money over there and spend it with the Ethiopian Jews. I want to go with." They would not let her get near the Ethiopian Jews. In fact, as close as she got, an IDF soldier pointed a submachine gun at her. Said, "No, you're not going there." She said, "I took my money and came right on back home."
Yeah, because you don't understand the actual situation until you actually get there, till you actually are interacting, and then you realize somebody's lying. So you realize somebody's lying. That's why, as I was stating, this last year and this year, that Eastern Mediterranean nation's on borrowed time, because I'm going to tell you this. This is why they want to get rid of Iran so badly, and they don't care how many U.S. troops, how many lives the U.S. troops will be, putting on into there. They got to get rid of Iran, or else that place is gone. And they've already had their contingency measures with Kenya, with South Africa, with Argentina, and some other places around the world. But you got to remember, when that happens, and millions of people are having to flee, what does that do to Eurocentric Christianity? That's a cornerstone. Don't get it twisted. That is a cornerstone of Eurocentric Christianity. Well, I thought the people of the book were white or Caucasian.
Well, that blows up a narrative big time, and actually, a place of a refuge for them from a lot of problems in other places of Europe actually was Germany at that time, and then that went south after the war, and then also. They were looking for land in Uganda before they landed up in Palestine. So it's nothing for them to move somewhere else. if need be. And
Well, no, it is because you have to remember this. When they move, then a lot of people will be questioning, especially Eurocentric Christianity. They'll then question, well, why are we giving these folks money
oh, that'll blow
if
up.
they claim to be the people? Yes. Oh, this is now the new Holy Land, and the Holy Land is really where the people is at, not necessarily according to the Bible.
And we probably already know it and everything like that. It's kind of out there on the internet. But 1877 Cars for Kids is going right over to that Eastern European nation, Eastern Mediterranean nation.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember. The letter that Jacoba had used, and this was an AI also. This video, it came out like last week, I think, and it was showing, that Jerusalem was in Africa, that the Promised Land was in Africa, and it's the same letter or it's the same resources that Jacoba had used in True Jerusalem. But it's interesting because when you're looking at this letter, which is verified by the Vatican and things of that nature. So when people try to say, well, it's a make-believe book. Actually, it's not. It's not a make-believe book. It's been validated. It's been sourced. The only problems that people have is that the libraries are in Europe, and those libraries are heavily controlled and guarded.
Well,
the Vatican has the catacombs that they don't want to open up. They're supposed to open that sucker up over 6.5 years ago. I remember March of 2020, and then conveniently the pandemic happened and they didn't open it up. When we were all waiting on it, because we all knew this is why I'm telling you the reparations piece, or I wouldn't even say reparations, but the restorative and reparative justice, it's going to hit Christianity like a bowl of rocks. Well, I would say a bucket of rocks, because that is part of reparative and restorative justice. A people group that was clearly of African descent, that was clearly in that area, that had been, whose heritage, whose name had been stolen. Because why? Because that was the ultimate form of white supremacy. The ultimate form of white supremacy is to be able to take on your heritage and your identity. That's the ultimate form of that's the ultimate form of vanity. Now, I'm this person now.
Well, they don't have to go far, because you don't have to understand. We don't need that book. Actually, I mean, that would be something from the time period. But your common sense tells you don't flee Pharaoh's chariots and an army pursuing you and move next door. I mean, Egypt is literally, you could walk from Egypt to present day, that Eastern Mediterranean nation. So you're trying to tell me you're fleeing a military, a power of the world, and you just move right into the door. You're trying to get away from somebody, and you move right next door to them. There's no way. So the Reed Sea, that wasn't the Reed Sea. It was it wasn't the Red Sea. It was the Reed Sea, the Yamsuf, and they went away from Egypt. So it's idiocy, not with the historical documents, to think that you flee somebody and move next door to them and they have in fact, Gaza was a military Egyptian outpost. Not only that, it was a stronghold against the other nations that would want to come down. Gaza they were strong military. So ain't no way they're moving in an area right next to Gaza and are going to enlist there right next to Egypt in the embryonic stage before they had the army and before they had it when the times of Judges. It's no way. So, I mean, they're without excuse, without the historical documents, even though they would prove that. So, Yacoba has done just tremendous research on that. So, you just don't have any excuse in an information age believing that idiocy that that's a mountain. One thing we talk about how Haile Selassie in the mountains of Ethiopia was able to defeat in the 19th century. Defeat the Egyptians coming in because it was a natural fortress in the mountains. He defeated the Italians because he was in a mountainous natural fortress, not that molehill that's over there in that Eastern Mediterranean nation. So there it is. So we just have to wake up. I'm more concerned about Black Christian getting the memo than anybody else.
Yeah, it is one of those things that we can pray that our people are getting the memo, but it is one of those situations that it has to be. There's a timing element to it. It just really is. And again, everything that we do, everything that we have done over the years. Shalom, thank you, brother Fast Nichols. Shalom. We're just fighting the good fight. We're running this race, and we could be very discouraged from the race. We can, but it's going to be our people that the Most High is going to then He's going to reveal that. I'm doing my part just every single day coming on up here.
It is the Rock Hakadesh.
Yeah, Gracie Strader says, just like now they're taking over our color, they are getting tanning jobs, lotions, and shots. If they going to be us also, who's going to be Esau in the end? But the reality is, look, you can't change genetics. That everything that they want to do, they know that they can't. The rocks will cry on out. They know. There's a lot of, they're going to try their best. They're going to try their best to hide themselves, and they've hidden themselves pretty decently over the century. But we know how to investigate things. We know our people. We know how our people look. We know how our people, operate. We know our mannerisms. That's the reality. And yeah, I do want to ask that question. Where are they getting that melanin from? And that is not anything that is that's inorganic. That is certainly organic. That cannot be produced unless it's from an actual body. So, let's just call it what it is. Vampirism. So, I'm just saying they eat us even till today, and tell me I'm lying.
No, well, it's historical.
And tell me out exactly. Go ahead.
In regard to what you were talking about, that term, the grapevine, that was referring to how information traveled, even when we were in slavery across the plantations. There were networks and things like that, but they could get information about what was being told. Even back then, among our people, information was shared and passed, so they knew what was happening. In fact, that's we liberated ourselves during the Civil War, because when it was an opportunity, the people just walked off the plantations, and that became even a problem for the Union Army. But they would just get up and go. So they liberated themselves. They weren't sheltering in place on the plantation. Opportunity to go, and that destroyed the economy of the South. Slaves just got up and went. So
yeah, they did, and then they were trying their best to not tell people. They're trying their best to discourage folks. You know, from so they got melatonin. Melatonin's different than melanin. Yeah. Melatonin is different than melanin. So when you're doing melanin, that is an organic. That means it is grown. It is not a plant-based substance that is grown, that is a body producing substance. So where are the bodies? Where do you get that from? That's why, look, are they eating what? Goats, cats? That's the whole issue.
By Torah, uh, residents of that Eastern Mediterranean nations would have to report to the rabbi because of the complexion of their skin. And we'd run around talking about unclean, unclean, unclean until they got the color back in their skin from the disease that was leprosy that skin tone meant in the Torah.
Yeah, exactly. We know what the word says, but there's also uh, that it wasn't the fact that it was just it was a little bit more complicated than that. Right, there was a little bit more complicated than that. When you would have a loss of melanin, that could also indicate infections and things of that nature. If you are in that particular manner where you are born and you are light, and it shows, if you have
Oh,
light hairs and things of that nature, because you have, even with albino and albinoism, you're not unclean. There's a lot of things that are prescribed to that um within, I believe, Numbers in Leviticus. So I
okay.
think we have to be a little bit more,
Well, yeah,
understanding.
that's true because they say even Noah may have been have albinism.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So we have to be very understanding. Like when you're talking about, in a leprous manner of that's really a skin disease, a skin eating disease. Because why? Because now your body's exposed to the radiation and things of that nature.
well.
Um,
Well,
so,
let me retract that statement, lest I be accused of skin doctrine.
hmm yeah. Someone said I saw a video. Cynthia said I saw a video there. They were saying they get the melanin by boiling the skin. Whose skin exactly? That's the question. The mission, of course, allegedly, melanin is on the black market, worth more than gold. Yeah, and they're saying that, and they're thinking, okay, well, these folks, they're not going to ever figure it on out. They're dumb. They play that right in our faces. This is why we have to check in on our people. We have to check in on our family. We have to ask about our family members that have, even if they're mad at us for some other reason. Look, we got to check in on them, because why? Because we don't want you to go missing. They see how hot this sun is. I was going to show that these things are record. These temperatures are record high, 50 degrees Celsius in Europe.
We cannot afford to be alienated from each other. And
Mm-mm.
and for people who know, we have to operate with as much understanding as we can. A soft answer turns away wrath, and knowing that the Most High and the Rock Hakodesh is on our side, and He's enlightening our people. So we have to be like a light to our people, as we are to the world, but definitely to our people.
Mm-hmm. Mm. All right, final comments, Mr. Rick, because I need to get up on that.
Okay.
This,
Well, we are closer than when we first began to where we must be, and I just love on our people. Uh, Gather together your networks and share resources. Be vigilant, careful. No more lone wolves. Don't be traveling among other people like that. Keep your own people according to Torah, and a nation can be born today, even when we're in our captivity, if we in our knowledge of our minds, so we can leave here together when God provides the opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Minister Rick. Hallelujah. All righty. Well, we covered a lot over this channel. I listen. I'm trying to keep my melanin on me. I ain't boiling nothing off. Now you see, man, that costs an arm and a leg for black folks. We said, Sister Minnie said 40 million per one black person. Now that's the definition of costing an arm and a leg. You could do without that right arm, can't you? You can do without that left arm. I don't know. Those are some interesting questions. Is this why they push our people with diabetes and everything else for amputations? I'm just saying. Uh-oh. What'd you do with that part of the body? What'd you do with my part of the foot? What'd you do with my leg? This isn't even fun. It's not even funny. It's interesting to understand. What does that mean? Now I need to get my foot back, the one you chopped off. I need to get my arm back, the one you chopped off. I'm stay. Ay, 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 boy, oh boy. That's what, look, victuals. This isn't anything hyperbolic. This isn't anything imaginative. Oh, no. And they're telling you right in our face. Man, Father, you need to help us before they literally are just on out there opening up real soul food restaurants. Or they may call it soulless food. Yeah, he had a soul. Now it's gone. Would you like some ribs? What meat is that? That don't even smell right. Oh, no. Oh, no. It pairs wonderfully with yams and collard greens. You should try the black eyed peas and rice. Just put some hot sauce on it. Oh my goodness! What type of rib is that? What is that? I don't what. Sorry, you can't order for the menu. Why can't I order from the menu? Because you're on the menu. That's some real tales from the hood right there. What we call black eyed peas and rice. That's what we do. That's how we do things right here. I don't put in ham hock. I put in the beef hock. Mm, mm, mm. Makes you wonder. Yeah, if we don't get up on out of here, if the Most High doesn't get us on out of here, when we're cooked, That is not just figuratively. Cooked, pureed, filleted. Man, I better be careful. Frickin' fricassee. Don't worry about the menu. You are on the menu. Well, we're gonna treat you real right. We're gonna get you nice and all the kernel spices. There ain't nowhere for you to go, boy. Just I'm glad that we can recover our brothers and sisters on out there. This is what I'm saying. Yeah, look, when they figure that on out, look, Renaya, exactly. Those who stay behind, they believe in this land. I pray that they change their minds. Yeah, because they're gonna realize they're gonna be on the menu. Sister Chantal, I know you want to laugh. I know you want to laugh. It's not funny. It's really not funny. This is highly, highly demented. I listen. I do not know how. Ugh. We got Christmas dinner. I do not want to be stuffed with somebody's with an apple in my mouth on a big behind silver platter. I do not want to do that. What would that even look like? Would I be in like? Would you be in like the fetal position? What? Ugh. Carrying on out with like 5 different people carrying that whole big behind silver. Remember they had that with the Olympics, the Paris Olympics. Y'all remember that, right? Or was it? I forgot which Olympics it was. I think it was the Paris. The dude was like being served on the platter, and he was blue. Oh man, we could go down the we could go all down that rabbit hole. Come on now. That's why they really get excited when they said the body of Christ. This is my body. They get real excited when they eat communion. They're like, now we're gonna eat some real communion. Mm, mm, mm. No, thank you. So Argentina has a restaurant called Big Nigger. Oh my goodness. I don't want to know what's on the daily special. Nah, homie. Yeah, look, we think it's a joke. We think it's a joke. They consume us. No, this is for real. We just we just could not really picture that. We couldn't actually reconcile that was actually the truth. So, all right, I gotta get up on out of here. Most High willing. I done started something. Father, help our people. Help our people. I done started something. There's limits to this ignorance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, fam. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Y'all gonna be looking. Y'all are not gonna be looking at that hamburger meat the same. Said the bun is a deep black cover. Godfrey was talking. Ah, man, it says. And he says, "The delectable Negro. They say we taste good. I don't want to taste myself. Ah." So let me get extra melanin on that Niagara burger. You got that melanin sauce here. Let me get the I need the St. Louis style ribs, the Dallas style ribs. I know that's real good. New Orleans style ribs is a little spicy. Look, yeah. They got that mojo. See, no, no. Come on, Cynthia. She said I ordered that book and it never arrived. Come, oh my goodness. No. Man, I got y'all started on something. Oh man, I gotta get up on out of here. I'm sorry, family. If you'd like to support this channel, $ COVAWK1. That's Cash App. Or you can do PayPal or Zelle at Karacy@MSN.com. Karacy@MSN.com. Definitely appreciate you all support. It is a blessing. I try not to be so ignorant around here. We try not to talk about, food. You don't want my meat. I'm not that lean. I don't really taste very good. I usually eat a lot of salt. I got high cholesterol, so it's gonna be all greasy. That's why you don't want to eat me. we make it off all sorts of. Yeah, I love it when it's greasy. That means it's gonna be juicier. No. Most High gave us over 2 vampires for real. That's why we like Halloween and vampire movies so much. Now I understand, man. There's a reason I was loving them Resident Evil movies. We in the land of zombies for real. There's a reason why I love that Underworld movie. And yeah, they were eating up them werewolves. And the one black werewolf, that was a brother too. Oh, they hide it in the movie so well. I cannot think. Oh my goodness. We got 3 months until Halloween. Oh my goodness. We're gonna have to hide. We're gonna have to hide in Halloween till the indignation pass over. They're gonna be coming on out with them makeshift with them smokers on wheels. What you got in that smoker? Oh my goodness. What type of meat you cooking? Well, we ain't cooking the meat just yet, but we just found. We just found the slabs of brisket. Who is that? What is that? Oh, it's you. It's you. Look, I'm surprised that honestly it's so jacked up. The Epstein thing shined the light, but you already know where that came from originally. So yeah, let me get up on out of here. Let me stop. My life told me. Yeah, let me stop because You won't see me at least until Veterans Day. Just in case people get any ideas. Oh, hallelujah. All right, thank you, family. Y'all be blessed. Most time willing, I'll see you all here. Don't need me, I'm Native American. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go. Shalom, salama, siemi, shalom. Peace and blessings. Yasharel.